Games Workshop, what are you doing to me? A new giant FAQ come out, loads of updates to rules, points, in what is already an overcomplicated game. Now I've been at this hobby for just under a year and playing the game is overcomplicated. There's too much going on. I started at the beginning of last year and took up the hobby, the modelling, love it. All that side of things is great. But as it comes to the game, it's really difficult. So we started off with 8th edition. I've got this giant book and the book's a race. I mean, I like all the content and media that comes out, but really high glossy pictures, lore, but there's a lot of rules to learn and a lot of complexity, because it's not just like how you roll dice, it's how the dice are modified by your army and their army, and then there's phases of the game, and then there's terrain, and you've got CPs for command points for re-rolling and doing extra things, and then you have to build your army in a certain way. For me, I buy models because I like the look of them. So in a range, I'd want to buy one of everything and then run an army like that. Run an army with a load of the massive chaos demons. And I think although you can do it, it's expected you to like build your army in a certain way, whether you have the attachments with your battalion, and so on and so forth. And that in itself is complicated. So apart from that book, you think, well, if you play any Space Marine, you need a Space Marine Codex. Massive. This is 8th edition. And then you've got, on top of that, this is extra rules, on top of that you've got the chapter specific rules. And then chapter approved came out, which adapted a load of rules, and then you had Psychic Awakening in 2020. I've got a few books here from Psychic Awakening. And again, I love the books. Lots of interesting content. But each of these has rules that modify a faction about different things. You've got a tiny page in here that modifies the rules for Necrons, and then here you've got loads of rules for Blood Angels. But and then it doesn't even stop there, because you've got erratas and FAQs which change the points, which change the meaning, the description of the way things are going. And you've got all that together, and then they release a new version 9. Now, admittedly, versions don't change very often, and version 9 has been cool. But what it means is I've got another big book to read. Again, great for lore. But the rules in 9th, it's actually a much longer read, because they've really gone to town in explaining watertight how to play the game. So you've got this. Boom. Obviously, if you're doing any Space Marine, you've got the new giant Space Marine Codex, and then you've got new codexes come out as well. And now we've just released this new FAQ that's changing things. So it's just really difficult, because the new version 9 is definitely tailored to competitive play. They made it watertight to stop people limited loopholes, but it does mean that to even start a game, you've got a couple of hours of admin, whether it's working out your points, working out your army, deciding how you're going to spend your warlord traits, what different stratagems you might play, and if you're Space Marines, you've got doctrines, and there's so much stuff going on. It's very difficult to get going. They've introduced a narrative side of things, campaigns, but even that is layered on top of this competitive rule set. And the narrative and campaigns is, again, super complex. It's super difficult. 25 years ago I played Space Crusade and Hero Quest, and they were great games, dead easy to play. I played that this Christmas 2020, Space Crusade with my son. That's what got us both going again into the hobby, and it was dead easy. Picked it up, played it for a couple of hours, loved it. But now, from a 9-year-old, to learn all these rules is almost impossible. And so I'm learning the rules for 2 factions so we can play together, and it's really, really difficult. So I've just, like I said, just gone down the rabbit hole of playing my own version of the game. What I would really want from Games Workshop is a set of rules for get people into the hobby. So the people that go into store, just have a quick game, who are just taking up the hobby, they buy the first set and some paints, and they want to play. You need a set of rules which just explain how things move, how things fire, forgetting stratagems, command points, terrain rules even, the way you build your army, how complex it is. Forgetting all that, I think there needs to be a central point to look for these rules, and there isn't, even in the apps. I mean, the Games Workshop app is pretty poor, and it's a subscription. It's not worth the money. It needs some place to look for the rules, some place to look for the points. Because I think you do need to understand points, because if you're playing together and you want to be competitive, you need to have a level playing field. So you start, and that's the way of doing that, is with points. And then you just play, and it's kind of, you can just battle, you can create a narrative storyline for things, you know, capture the flag type thing. There's loads of different ways you can approach it, and then when you get to like a year's level of experience playing this and playing, you know, that's when you bring all these books together and you play the full game. I just think Games Workshop have missed the trick, especially with the boom in the hobby at the moment, especially with the growth and how many people have joined, and how difficult they find it to send supplies, which obviously shows that people are loving the models in the hobby. They missed the trick in making it easy to play. So let's hope that going forwards they do come up with that clarification. They separate tournament from hobby, from, you know, like competitive, you know, just competitive hobby, and then narrative play. They need to separate those bits, maybe the separate books, and it gives them an opportunity to sell stuff. The hobby itself is time consuming. You know, the building, painting is time consuming, but it's enjoyable. If a game takes you an hour to set up and then takes you 6 hours to play, you know, that's very difficult to justify. You know, thinking about secondary objectives and primaries, and counting your command points, and making sure you play the stratagems at the right time, and picking something from Psychic Awakening book that you can use with the new Space Marine Codex and the core rulebook, and then the new FAQ and the errata, and then somebody comes out with, you know, well, I've got my new book that comes out tomorrow, and there's just too much going on. This is a message really for all the people like me who've been in the hobby for a year, less, maybe more, who's a newbie to the subject. Keep it fun, keep the enjoyment in the game, because at the end of the time, it's, you know, I'm in the hobby, I like making models, and I like playing with them. I like the idea of playing the grim dark 40k games, and I don't want that to stop, and I'm not going to be put off by the complexity and the difficulty in this, and I don't think anyone else new to the subject should be either. You really need to find a way of playing that suits you, and part of that could just be chucking out a load of rules and a load of complexity and just keeping it down to dice rolls. Now admittedly, you know, you have to learn stuff about an army, and you have to play with it a good few times before you even learn the rules around your army. And especially if you're like me, you just buy models because you like the look of them. You get a lot of contrasting rules, and it's very difficult to remember all the time whether you're re-rolling, whether you're subtracting, adding onto the calculations between hits and wounds and stuff like that. Just don't worry so much. Just enjoy the fact that you're having a game. Doesn't matter if you lose. I'm going to do some battle reports. I'm going to talk about the way I like to play, and you'll see that it's nothing like the rest of them. It's how you play 40k just for the fun of it, just for a small amount of competitiveness, without the complexity. And you can see that even when I play, constantly looking into a book to check on something. You know, what's the strength of this gun compared to the toughness of that? I'm going to keep buying the books. I'm going to keep learning the rules. You know, like I said, I like the content. I'm probably not going to read the FAQ and the erratas. I am going to watch the YouTube videos that explain it for me, but I'm not going to retain that information. You know, just thinking about people who started in 8th edition like me last year, just moving from these two books, 8th to 9th, is a big jump. You've got small changes to how things work. Like you introduce the new keyword core, which changes the way things work, and the way the rerolls you were expecting this now work in that. You've got keywords like fly, which have updated, and the way you're firing now in terrain has all changed. So it's even people that had got familiar with it in 8th come out in 9th, and they're just bombarded with stuff. Thanks for watching. I hope this has been interesting. Rant over. You know, comment down below if you've got anything to say about this. If you agree, disagree. Yeah, I'm happy to comment back to everyone. Like and subscribe. A lot more content coming. So thank you very much.